I mean, a lot of what you're doing now is with the anti-trafficking
Yeah.
and with the recovery out of disaster hit
Hmm.
areas. Is there a bit of tactical or physical or logistical retraining, or is it all the values? And if it is the values, I'd love to know what those values are.
So I think what's the main thing is we're instead of like mission focused and where's the enemy, protect the team,
Sure.
all of that. We're more humanitarian focused now, right? So you got to start working on the interpersonal skills, the empathy, really understanding what's going on, and the impact of your actions, and when you're out in those locations, what you're really doing. Because our focus now is the civilian populace. It's not the military side of things. And I think the biggest disconnect, and you probably hear this theme a lot, is like your lack of identity when you get out of the service. And some people retire like myself, but you have people that are medically retired. Maybe they, have a substance abuse issue or something. They get separated from the military, whatever it is. They end up getting taken away from that life that they know so well, and they get put in the civilian world.
Right.
And I say they, but it's me as well, because I was like heal the hero veteran #1, right? My wife always says I'm like kind of the guinea pig.
Yeah.
But I was there too, man. Like I have all this training. I got millions of dollars of government training in me from everything from all these like secret squirrel schools and all these things, man. And when I got to that point where I was getting out of the military, I was like, what am I, like, all this is useless now.
Yeah,
like, what am I going to do now? Right. And I know athletes kind of go through that. A lot of these people that are very, they're known for one thing. You kind of think like you're useless out there. And a lot of us would be more comfortable like running into a firefight or being caught in a near ambush than like going out and figuring out exactly how you got to start a business or get your taxes done, or, like it's so interesting that it's the unknown, right? Like you get comfortable even with real difficult, dangerous, life-threatening situations, and being in the regular civilian world it's foreign, and it's almost kind of scary for vets, which is super interesting. So a lot of our training is that. It's like, we have this term, it's called permanent change of station, PCS.
Permanent change of station.
Yeah, right. So like say I was in Germany, right? And I got orders to go to a new unit. You get your PCS orders, permanent change of station. So I try to tell these vets, man, I'm like, you're not like, you're PCSing from military, you're PCSing the rest of your life. And you're taking all those skills, like everything you learned and all that experience, and now you're going on to the next thing. We got to focus on what we got to do now. We got all these great things. Let's go figure out what we can do and the good we can do in now and in the future. And that's like our main thing is just
so putting that sort of feeling of purposeless, of feeling lost, the fear, putting that into service, that saved you in a way, and that's saving these guys. And can you, like, how did you come to that? Like, where did that impulse come from? How did you figure that out?
Yeah. Well, I like to tell, there's a couple of stories that really come to mind, and throughout my career, I always had this, I think it drew me to the military in the first place, is like this protective instinct. And I have a younger sister, and the various things that happened through my childhood, I was always very protective of her. And that transferred to who I am and what I'm as an adult. And going out and these deployments, I've been overseas like 7 times, about 5 years of my life in combat zones. And no matter what the mission was, like I'd always see this stuff that was going on the outside. I'd see these people that are struggling, or the civilian population that's affected by us being there, or whatever is going on. But that's not my mission, right? My mission is this. My mission's assigned to me, and that kind of bothered me. But I'd always see that, and I remember a couple times, like this one time I was out in Iraq, man, and this is right outside Sadr City, and we were just doing a patrol, like normal patrol, and I'm sitting there on point, and I go down and I take a knee at like the end of this intersection. And the cool thing, about the military is everything's assigned and you train, right? And, so I got my sectors of fire. I got my 12 o'clock, my 9 o'clock. This is what I'm responsible for here, right here. And so I'm sitting down there and I take a knee and I'm scanning and I'm looking, and I look like right to this house next to me. And there's like this fence that goes around and a gate. And I'm looking at this gate, and there's like a rope attached to it. And I follow this rope down, and it's attached to like this ankle, right? And I follow it forward, and it's like this kid, like an 11-year-old. And I take a look at him, and he's tied up like a dog, and I can't even make his face out because he's covered in flies. And he was so physically and mentally disabled that he didn't even have the wherewithal to wipe his face, and his parents had just tied him up like an animal and put food and water in front of him. And I remember looking at that and I'm like, we got to do something for this kid, So I call it up on my radio, and my squad leader gets over there and he comes down and takes a knee. He's like, what do you got, Locke? He looking over my shoulder, looking for the bad guys or whatever. And I'm like, look at this kid. Like, we got to do something about this kid. And he's like, that's not our job, And then that was something that always stuck with me. And in the culture in the military, you have to almost hide those feelings because you get ridiculed for it. So I was made fun of for like weeks or a month over in Iraq because I cared about this kid, and that's something that you got to hold on to that stuff, man. Like, cause that's your humanity that's there. You're in a war zone and you're seeing all this crap, and like your humanity is still there. So those are the point of references I want to keep like talking to our veterans about, is like, let's focus on, man, there's goodness in every sort of situation. What can we do for those people? And that's what we're trying to do now, is we're trying to use our skills to help those people, like that poor kid in Iraq that was tied up.
How common is it that you think that guys, especially in the SF community, have stories like that, right? That you've had to shut down.
Oh yeah.
That because and look, at times, there's stories of it. Uh-huh. You start to have empathy for somebody. You start to, and that takes you off the mission. It puts you at danger. It puts the people around you at danger. Mm-hmm. But would you imagine pretty much all these guys have had things like that, where their heart has sort of bursted wide open for somebody with a case of empathy, and then they've had to shut it down?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And the military is so interesting too, because they teach you to kind of redirect that, right? So if I see this, like, well, that's those people that are out here, look at what they're doing. That's a result of like the enemy and all of that. So now I'm pissed off about this, and it's just fuel for me to get revenge or fight harder or something like that. And I tell that about, like, that's kind of like bad energy, right? And that's something that they really teach us. But yeah, man, like, you see that stuff, you see it everywhere. And I'll be honest with you, I think the military is getting a little bit better about it. When I first was in, the early 2000s, like, you didn't talk about mental health. You didn't talk about, that's like quitting on your team, because, it's like, it's a fake injury. There's nothing wrong with you. Right. Get your ass back out there. You just don't want to deploy. You're scared.
Right.
You're chicken.
Right.
And that was the thing, you go to mental health, that's it. Like, you're a coward.
Yep.
I think we're starting to understand that there's a reason, you have every 83 seconds, a U.S. veteran commits suicide. 83 seconds, man. That's insane.
Yeah. And
those scars, like, they're in you.
Yeah.
That's damaging, man. And that's kind of where it transitions, because there's so much broken about, like, I know, like, the VA, and I know they try to do good things for you, but there's so much broken about it.
Yeah.
And that's where we are now, is because I myself was a product of that. And I'll just briefly go over this, but in December 2020, I'd gotten back from Syria that July. That was my third trip out to Syria. And I'd met my wife previous to that. I'd gone and served in after Hurricane Dorian in the Bahamas, 2019. It was a big one, Category 5. Stuck over Grand Bahama and Abaco for over 24 hours. It stalled there, just total devastation. And that was this point where I realized, like, man, like, I can do stuff outside the military. I can use my skills to help here, right? And that's kind of where we started thinking about recovery. But prior to that, there were some things in my life that I was doing that I didn't even really recognize. Like, I was a functioning alcoholic for about a decade up to that point, through things that I'd seen, best friend being killed, wife cheating on me when I was overseas, like all these things that add up. And I got to a point where, I got back in July and I was like, man, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to go help people abroad utilize my skills. Right.
Wow.
But I hadn't gotten rid of those demons yet. And when I started putting my retirement packet in, you drop it in, I'm at like 19 years at that point. I told them, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to retire out of the military, and the SF's pretty cool. So they're like, well, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'm going to go help people. And they're like, all right, man, you don't need to come to work. Just come check in every once in a while, right?
Wow.
So in doing that, I went to started my out processing, right? And they took me to this clinic. It's called Intrepid Spirit, and it's great, right? I've been involved in a couple IED blasts and some of the weaponry I trained on. I have a traumatic brain injury. So they put me in this room, and I have all these doctors around and neurosurgeons, psychologists, all these people, right? And they go over my case, and they assigned me a psychiatrist. I never had one before. And this is in, you know, the COVID time, right? So this is a Zoom call like once every 2 weeks. And so I talked to this lady, and you know, bless her, she's trying to do her best. Sure, but I talked to her, and she's like, all right, you know, introduces herself, and this is a 1 hour call every 2 weeks. And she's like, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to think back to like a memory or a time on one of your deployments that was really tough. And she's like, I want you to find one that like you've almost forgotten. And I was like, all right. So I start digging, you know, because I buried this stuff deep, man. Like, you know, like we got that. We got to hide it in this box and put it inside of me. That's what I was doing. And I found one of these memories. And I remember, you know, this is another time in Iraq, and we got this news of this mass grave. Like there'd been like an ethnic cleansing. And so we're walking around. We walk out there and we find this supposed site, and we start digging it up with our hands and our little shovels. And sure enough, we started unearthing all these bodies with like, I mean, we got gloves on, but basically our bare hands, you know, I'm seeing like little kids decomposing faces and hands. And I'm like, holy hell, you know, that's deep. That's rough. And I started explaining that to her, and then bing, it's like, time's up.
Shut the fuck.
And I was like, dude. All right. So she's like, we'll talk about this in 2 weeks. So man, so then like everything starts coming back, right? Like I was trying to go sober again at that point, start drinking again. I got my anxiety, I got nightmares, it's all coming back in. And I talked to her 2 weeks later. She's like, how you feeling? I'm feeling like shit. You know, everything, like all my symptoms are back. Like I can't stop, but every time I close my eyes, I see that. And she's like, all right. So she puts me on medication. So now I'm on Zoloft, and I start getting on all these prescription medications, and they're trying to help me, but I didn't have the like tools to process. Like it was rough, man. So I start taking medication. I'm on all this stuff, and I'm drinking again. I'm lying to my now wife, my girlfriend, because I'm trying to make myself feel better. So that's what alcohol did that for me. And I get to a point in December, and I was at that last straw. Like I knew what I wanted to do in life, but I still had those anchors that were holding me back. Sure. And then, you know, and like I talk about anchors a lot when I speak to my vets. Like, you know, they can be good at some point, they can keep you stable, but at the end of the day, you're not going to get to where you want to go if you keep them there. And December 5th, I go out and talk to my wife. She's off doing wonderful things as she always is. And she's like, you can be drinking tonight? I was like, no, you know, no, I'm good. I promise you, baby, I'm not drinking anymore. And sure enough, I get around my friends, and one thing leads to another, and I wake up that next morning, like passed out on my phone, like completely wasted, all this. And I just remember that morning, man, like I was like, fuck, that's it. Like she's gone. My purpose is gone. I'm out of the military now. Like I got nothing. And we talk about the suicide. I had a plan, you know? So I was going to execute that plan that morning. And I have a nightstand next to my bed. So I pull my Glock 19 out of there, and I have all my stuff set up. Like I was going to act like I was cleaning my weapon. And I take the weapon down, and I put it here up against my leg, and I was planning on shooting myself in the femoral and just let myself bleed out. And I had two things happen. I had bought her this little, this is going to be emotional about me because my dog just died, but I bought her this Great Dane. His name's Captain. He's a little puppy, you know, and I didn't close my door enough. So he pushed the door open, and he came and sat down. He was looking at me, and I was like, man, I can't do this in front of this dog, you know, like, so I put the gun down temporarily, and I went and put him in the bathroom. And then I came back from the bathroom, and I was like, all right, now my brain's starting to think a little bit more rationally. I'm like, oh, well, who can I have come over to check on the dog who's strong enough to potentially see me dead? So I'm thinking, all right, well, I'll think about some of my military buddies, right? They've seen death all the time. And I'm like, man, I can't put that on them, you know? And so I'm like, how am I going to do this? And I pick up my phone, and I had a message from my now wife, Brittany, you know, and it was like a message of love, man. It was like, and she's like so ingrained in her purpose. She's like, she's like, I got people helping this world, and I don't know if I can be with you, but I can always love you. And maybe I can't be with you, but I can always be there for you, you know? And I was like, I was like, man, that's it. You know, like, I got to change something. And so I put the gun away. I pet the dog, and that was December 6, 2020, man. That was the last time I ever touched alcohol. And I've been sober since then. And I talked to my wife. She's an entrepreneur, and we start planning things SF-wise, man. I'm like, I'm not the enemy. These things that I'm leaning on, this is my enemy, right? So I got to treat him as my enemy. And we started planning all this out, and that's what we do. That's why we have the Heal the Heroes program. Because there's guys like me, you know, that we got so much good to do in this world. Because it was, after that point, it was 2 months later, I was chasing a witch doctor down for beheading kids in Uganda.
Wow.
And I was almost not even on this planet anymore, man. Like, so it's unbelievable how we can talk ourselves into what seems crazy and take the easy way out. But the ripple effect of everything, what God's calling, what we got in this world, man, we got so much work to do. That's right. And we need to get past our feelings and our demons, and we need to go do that work. I always tell my guys, I'm like, you know, we got these demons inside of you, but man, there's angels everywhere. It's like, you can't let your demons inside you destroy the angels and those that you love. And so our work ain't over, man. Like, it's just change battlefields.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's John, Bam Bam the dog. First, on behalf of both of us and everybody from the Real Ones team, I just want to sincerely thank you guys for tuning in. The folks that I bring on the show, they're family to me, and being able to tell their stories and bringing you into their world is something I'm just super proud of, and again, grateful that you guys tune in. We've decided we want to take things just a step further. It's a Patreon community, and basically what that means is if you become part of this community, look, I already bored Bam Bam. If you want to become a part of this community, you're going to be able to hear episodes early and all that, ad-free and all that good stuff. But there's all this behind-the-scenes footage, all this stuff that we've shot that really brings you into the folks that we've had on the show, really brings you into their world. Live chats with me and the folks that I bring on the show to talk about their world, talk about the issues that they're dealing with, about their triumphs and their tragedies. Just go to Patreon/RealOnes on this website that you see right there, right on the screen, that's right in front of you. This whole idea was something about building bridges and bringing people together and bringing folks that often don't get the mic and giving the mic to them. So the fact that you guys tune in means the world. Anyways, again, thank you. Be good to each other out there. Rock and roll.